What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, the official Cliffy J, and I'm back with another video. And today, I'm gonna be giving you guys another Survivor ranking. And in this video, I'm gonna be ranking every new era winner. So let's get into today's video. And y'all know me with these rankings, I need to have a criteria. So the criteria I'm gonna be going by and stuff I'm gonna be looking at is a player's positioning. I'm looking at their agency and control in the game.
Your name,
I'm
Gambler.
looking at
I'll
their
let you know.
challenge
That's not a whole lot.
ability.
I mean, this is
I'm looking at
Survivor. That's
how they
not
worked
like
with the advantages. So let's get into each of these categories and how I rank these players in terms of those. As you guys see right there on the screen, for positioning, I have D at 1 because I think that she just had a lot of control. She controlled a handful of vote offs, and she was always in a very, very solid position because she was a part of the dominant alliance, and she was very integrated into that dominant alliance. So she was good all game basically. Kenzie, she was part of the alliance that ran the initial Yanu tribe, and then when they got to the merge, though she wasn't a part of the initial power structure, she was very close to it, and when they were able to break off, she was still very closely aligned with a lot of players. And when they got to the point that another alliance was able to take over the game, she was a part of that alliance and close with a lot of the members to where she was pretty safe. On top of that, you just got to give her credit for basically being safe the entire game. I mean, Kenzie's name barely ever came up, in during the merge section of the game. Then we have Gabler, something very similar where during the merge section of the game, his name never really came up. On top of that, early in the game, even though it didn't seem like he was in that great of a position, even when they went to tribal, he didn't go home. We got Yam Yam, who, though he wasn't in a great position early, he was able to get to the merge and be in a dominant position along with his members from his original tribe. We have Erica, who was never in a terrible, terrible worst position ever, but she wasn't greatly positioned until they got to the merge, and especially post the Shan vote. Then we also have Rachel, someone that was in and out of the majority, so I can't really give her much credit for positioning. But when she was in a good position, she was in a really solid position, being a big player that was integrated a part of these dominant alliances when she was. That was just not very common. And then we have Marianne, someone that even when she was a part of the dominant alliance, she was on the bottom, so I can't really give her much credit for positioning. Then we have agency. We're looking at D still at number 1, as I said, had a lot of agency and controlled a handful of vote offs. Yam Yam, someone that was aligned with Carson, the guy that was controlling every vote. Erica, from the Shan vote on, was able to control the game. Rachel, as I said, in and out of the majority, but when she was in the majority, she had a whole lot of agency. Marianne was able to control one vote, and that was a very important vote off. Kenzie never truly controlled a vote, but at points she was able to do certain things to influence player decision making that did end up controlling the vote. Then we also have Gabler, the guy that he was able to get Ellie out, but I don't really know if he truly got Ellie out. You know what I'm saying? So can't really give him much credit for agency, but he has his. It's at points where you can see a little something there. Then we're looking at challenges. It's pretty clear that Rachel would have to be number 1 with 4 immunity wins. Then we have D, Erica, Kenzie, who technically won 2. Then Gabler, Yam Yam, and Marianne. And then advantages, Marianne goes from the bottom to the top because she's able to be the best, in my opinion, in terms of advantages. She found 2 idols and a extra vote and played them all correct. Well, she didn't have to play any of them. She didn't have to actually play that idol that she played. Then she didn't play the other one, but she played it at final tribal. So she played them all correctly. Rachel was able to earn a still a vote and find an idol and save herself with it. Gabler, he was able to earn an idol and told his tribe about it. Dee tipped off Julie to play her idol and then do the Emily blind side. And Kenzie was able to convince people to play their idols. I mean, well, to not play their idols, because they never played idols in their season. Was able to convince people not to play their idols. And then we have Yam Yam and Erica, who don't really know too much to say about them with the idols. I don't really know too much to say about them with the idols. Yeah. So that's basically how I was kind of looking at stuff coming into my rankings. And I was able to kind of devise four different tiers in which I was going to rank these players. So let's go over to the handy dandy tier list. All right, bet. Now that we over here at the tier list, the four categories that I was able to make four tiers are wolf in goat's clothing, social butterfly, balanced, and dominant. So let's get into number 7. The first player in this lowest tier, we have Marianne. I think it's definitely an argument for her to be a few spots higher. But for me, I gotta put her here mainly because she only really controlled the Omar round. She was in a bad position early in the game, which is a big deal to me. And she wanted to save Lindsay. She didn't, but she wanted to save Lindsay, who is the harder beat over Jonathan. On top of that, she won no challenges, and her win equity, in my opinion, kind of relied on a solid final tribal performance from her and a bad one from Mike. Not saying she wouldn't have won if she wouldn't have had a great one. He would have had a good one, but I kind of feel like that had something to do with it. I'm pretty sure it did. And then at number 6, I got Gabler. And I think it's pretty much a toss up between Gabler and Marianne. You can go either way, and I would go either way. I'm just going to lean Gabler right now. I think he played a really smart game. Not smart enough for him to have control, but yeah, really smart game. And it's still hard for me to kind of tell how he pulled it off. But he also was in a bad position early, and he didn't have like dominant tribe mates coming into the merge like Omar and Lindsay. And that's kind of why I think I'm putting him a little bit higher, because he was able to kind of naturally like do gameplay rather than being like aligned with them because you guys are from the same tribe, align himself with Cody and Jesse, and they kind of carried him through a point of the merge. And I think that's kind of what I give him a little more credit for over Marianne. I think his gameplay was a little more intentional. I think he was a little bit more aware too. So I got to give him that type of credit. On to the next tier, the social butterfly tier. And I think this tier is perfectly named for these players. And at number 5, this is probably going to be a shock because I actually was much higher on this player before. I know a lot of people are high on this guy, but I got Yam Yam. Yeah. He's an amazing social player. I just think the agency Yam Yam gets some credit for, it kind of should go mostly to Carson. And I feel like it's relationships that Carson kind of had with players. And I do think it is very impressive that they were able to, control the game together. And Yam Yam was able to traverse the game as a big threat, like he was for basically the entire merge. I just think that I would testament more of his game to Carson. I would attest more of his game to Carson than to himself in terms of strategically, because I don't think he was positioned great early either. And I kind of think that goes in lines with the other players, whereas he doesn't have that sole dominance time. So that's kind of where I'm coming from for him. And then at number 4, I got Kenzie. And Kenzie and Yam Yam both were not the greatest strategic players, and I think made some bad strategic moves and had bad strategic thoughts in general. And two of my biggest knocks for Kenzie's game is the fact that she never displayed genuine control over a vote or something like that. But she played so great socially. She was able to build trust with most players at the merge, and she was positioned so well that she was a part of decision making and strategy talks throughout the entire game. And I think that on a more fluid season like what she had, I think that for her season was more fluid. First for Yam Yam, he was in a more stable position. And I think that does definitely matter. And that goes into why I just believe that Kenzie was the more impressive player and around the same level as a winner. I think you would say Yam had a better win on paper, but I just feel like she was more impressive overall. And then at number 3, starting off another tier, we have the very well-rounded players, the ones that I think are very skilled and they could even be in the argument for the best player of the new era. I have at number 3, Rachel. And I actually really like Rachel, and I do think I want to put her higher, but this is really as high as I can go, and I think this is even stretching it a bit. I'm gonna be honest, guys. Positioning is very important, and that was probably the weakest part of her game. Going in and out of the majority of the entire game, she was, you know, at points dominant. But I do think she was more dominant in terms of the challenges. She was able to earn an advantage and she kind of bluffed her opponents. So I do think it is some strategy there. And she was respected before she even went on her historic run. So I do think there is a very well-rounded player there, and that was a very well-rounded game. So you got to give her a lot of credit. It's skill. Skill is there. Finesse. She got all that. She got the skill. She got the finesse. It's just not as good on paper, and on paper does matter too. At number 2, we got the very, very polarizing Erica. And she was on the bottom early, but she wasn't ever certainly going home. And at the merge, she was always voting correctly. And post the Shan blindside, the game ran through her and Heather. She was able to win multiple immunities and had a similar level of win equity to anybody outside of Shan and maybe Ricard. So I do definitely think that, well, she had more win equity than anybody but Shan or Ricard. I do think that it is like a slick divide between these last 3, but I would have to have Erica at number 2. And at number 1, I don't think this was really ever a question, but it is what it is. Might as well make the list for fun, right? But nah, we got D. And not really much to be said. She played the most dominant game of the new era from a whole season perspective, especially with her closing it out at Final Tribal. The Sifu shit was bad, and the final 6 was even worse, but it's still not really that close. She had a good relationship with Julie, Austin, Katora, Kelly, and other players. She controlled a handful of vote offs and won a few immunities. I just think that got to give her credit. I think she is the best winner of the new era. Um, I do think it is not as far as a couple tiers gap. I think there is a tier, it's not a full tier. It's literally like half a tier gap between her, Rachel, and Erica. So it's an argument there, in my opinion. I don't think D is just de facto the best player of the new era. I think she is the best winner of the new era, in my opinion. And this is how I got there, giving you guys some context too. So you guys let me know what you guys thought of this video. And if I should make more Survivor videos, y'all let me know in the comments what videos y'all want me to make. And stay tuned for more Survivor Challenge, maybe even Big Brother videos in the future.